Hello, interwebs. I hope you're all doing well, especially considering the honestly rather somber topic that I'm going to be briefly speaking about today for today's video, and that is the recent and tragic passing of Nichelle Nichols, who played Uhura on Star Trek: The Original Series. This video is a little bit later than I wanted to get it up, and later than some other people's tributes to the wonderful Nichelle Nichols have gone up. And the reason for that is I've actually been very busy these past few days because I'm actually going to be traveling this weekend for a friend's wedding. And so I've been busy, working. And I wanted to make sure that when I spoke about her and her life and her legacy, that I was able to give it the proper amount of time and weight to be able to speak from the heart, but also with the proper amount of just thought put into what her death means for the world and to many people. And then also I wanted to make sure that, I as a white person didn't speak first, because while obviously Nichelle Nichols was very important to me in many different respects, not the least of which was her wonderful performance in Star Trek, the community that she did so much for and meant the most to was quite obviously the Black community here in America and around the world. And again, she meant so much to so many other people, but specifically to many Black Americans and, again, Black people around the world. Her legacy is unparalleled in many different ways. And so I wanted to let folks who could better speak on that speak first, because I think that that's much more important. But now I did want to take some time to say some things about her. As well as draw attention to a part of a story that a lot of people are telling about her now that she has passed. An element of that story that I think has gotten missed by a few folks that I think is an important aspect of that story. But before I get to that, I think it's first important to mention, obviously the first thing to say is Nichelle was such a wonderful and gifted performer on Star Trek. Unfortunately, at the time, she did not get much to do on that show. She was sort of one of the, I don't want to say background players, because she obviously was there and in the forefront and got to do a lot of scenes, especially towards later on in the series. But, it was a time when the show usually revolved around some specific leading men. So we had William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, and DeForest Kelley as sort of the tertiary lead there. But every single chance that she got to be on screen, she always commanded that presence. You felt her in every scene that she had, whether it be in the episode Mirror Mirror, where she's playing around with Sulu and just being her wonderful, over-the-top self, or in scenes where she showed her intelligence and skill alongside Leonard Nimoy as an engineer. She was always just excellent in all of those scenes, no matter how big or small they were. She obviously was part of, not the first interracial kiss, as it's often thought of on television, but one of the first interracial kisses on television, and is certainly a very important one, even though that episode has wonky consent issues around it. It was still a very, very important moment in television history. And one which inspired many people and taught many people that this was it was an okay thing to do. Again, there's many caveats to that, but still an important moment. And then she went on to play so many wonderful parts in Star Trek movies and other places as well. She was also in TV shows like The Lieutenant, where she played a wonderful part. I haven't watched that episode in a long time, but I watched it years ago, and I remember her being excellent in it. And as well as many other parts that she played in all of that. But beyond that, she also used that position of the attention that she got from being in Star Trek to help uplift other people and inspire others. There's a wonderful documentary that I highly recommend everyone watch called Women in Motion that released about a year or two ago about how Nichelle worked really hard with NASA to bring many Black women, and women in general, but especially Black women, into the space program and get women into space. And there are many women who went to space who are in NASA because of her, because she inspired them and worked to get them into that program. And so that is directly because of her. And there are so many women and black women and black people that came after Nichelle, both in Star Trek and in other pop culture franchises and in acting circles that also have a direct lineage to Nichelle's work in Star Trek. I mean, quite obviously have Whoopi Goldberg, who speaks often about Nichelle Nichols' inspiration to her to go into acting and eventually be on Star Trek: The Next Generation and other things. You also have, Sonequa Martin Green from Star Trek Discovery, the first black female lead of a Star Trek show, who also speaks about Nichelle's wonderful, lineage and legacy that led to her. Celia Gooding Jr. in Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, who was playing Uhura Zoe Saldana as well from the movies. Those are just direct impacts that you see. There are so many indirect ways she's inspired so many people to join the acting field and be inspired and join STEM and sciences and all of these things because they saw her. They saw a black woman on the bridge of a starship in the future, and they saw that they could be there. They could be a part of that future. And while certainly I'm not a member of the black community, there was power in that for other marginalized people too. It was part of what that show meant to so many, that it was a show that showed everyone could be in the future. Every marginalized group is just part of the equal project of humanity in the Star Trek future. And it's what inspires me every day, that infinite diversity and infinite combinations that I have tattooed on my arm, that ethos that Star Trek showcased, inspires me to try to always hope and work and fight for the better future. And that is, just clearly shown by Nichelle Nichols' excellent work on that show and presence on that show. So none of that could ever be understated. That all being said, there is a story that many people are passing around, and it's an important story that Nichelle often shared, about how Martin Luther King Jr., when, Nichelle was considering leaving the show, I believe in between its first and second seasons, it might have been second and third, I'm not sure, I think it was believed between first and second seasons, she was considering leaving Star Trek because she wanted to pursue other projects. This was a small TV show. She had wanted to be on stage and do other things. Those were her dreams. And so she told Gene Roddenberry she was thinking of leaving. And Gene Roddenberry tried to say, no, don't go. This is very important, this project that I'm doing, for all of the reasons that I said. And then she ran into Martin Luther King Jr. at a party, and he said, I'm a big Trekkie as well. And she shares the story and tells it more elegantly than I ever could. He said that, it's important for you to stay there because people can see a black person and a black woman in that future. And if you leave, that role can be replaced by an alien. It can be replaced by anybody. And it's important for you to be there, to be this symbol, this image, that black people can be part of this future. And ultimately, she chose to stay because of the words that Martin Luther King Jr. said to her. And it led to all the things that I said. But one aspect of that story that I think gets missed, if you listen to Nichelle talk about that story, and I'll link to her telling that story in the down below. One thing that she's talked about was how angry she was after hearing that. Not at Martin Luther King Jr., just in general at the situation. That she had to carry this weight on her shoulders. Why me? Is something she literally said. Why me? And it speaks to the pressure that many people in marginalized groups feel when put in those situations, when they are the one representation that you get to see in things like this. The weight of the world, their community, is on their shoulders. And they have to represent so much as one single person, and that's an impossible task. It's impossible. No one person can be representative of an entire community. And so she was angry. She was angry that she had to bear that burden, that she had to sacrifice going to do things on stage and being other things to be on Star Trek. But she did it. And she did so beautifully and elegantly. And she inspired all the people that I mentioned earlier. And I think that is the element of her legacy that I think speaks to me is that she carried this weight beautifully and elegantly despite everything and all the sacrifices she made for it. And certainly she prospered being on Star Trek too. I mean, she got to be one of the most famous people in science fiction, but it was also a struggle and a burden in many ways, and she did it, and she carried it wonderfully. But her biggest legacy is the fact that she made spaces for so many people after her. It wasn't just she got to be there and then she made a space for someone else. It was that she was there and she made a space for so many after her. She helped to bring all of this forward and all of these people forward. And I think, while we speak of that, I think that's something that I just wish to underscore. How much she gave and how much she created by just being this amazing, elegant person and performer. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to say about Nichelle Nichols. Yeah. She will definitely be missed. And I say to her and to everybody, that she lived long and prospered. And I hope that everybody lives long and prospers. Yeah. I love you all. And rest in peace. Rest in power. Nichelle Nichols.